Being able to manage your self-talk influences how you show up in your business, and it influences how you dictate your prices. It influences how you market and message and position yourself. The only competitor that I have been losing against is myself this entire time. Because when you really ask yourself, okay, why can I not charge more? Where did you get that idea from? I can't pinpoint where somebody externally telling me what I couldn't do. So I realized that a lot of the limitations that I have experienced, a lot of the hurdles that I have had to work to overcome have been self-imposed. They have been self-imposed limitations that I have told myself that I have made up as a belief because of whatever reason. And there's probably a million reasons why, but it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, the only competitor that I had to fight was myself. It was the self-talk on nobody would pay me for X, Y, or Z, or there's no way that I could charge that much. There is nobody in my audience who would pay more money to work with me. I can't start a business. Nobody will hire me. I don't know how I can overcome objections. Like, those are all self-imposed limiting thoughts. So I want to start the conversation with that because I want you to even ask yourself, do you even know who your competition is? I know that you are tired of having to offer discounts, give away free scholarships, lower your price, have to negotiate and haggle unique payment plans just to get the client to say yes. And if that is a position that you have been in, like, this episode is for you. I want us to talk about really what you can be doing and how you can be positioning yourself so that you can beat the competition without having to lower your prices. Because there's so many other strategies, approaches, and techniques that you could be deploying that maybe you're just not thinking about, or maybe that you're currently not aware of on how to get the sale without only lowering your price. Okay. So if you are new here, hello and welcome. Hey there, my name is Jerisha Hawk. I'm a business coach. I specialize in high ticket sales. And I really woke up this morning feeling like, okay, we need to talk about what's required to beat or handle the competition without just lowering your prices. But before we get even into probably the strategies or tactics that you might be expecting from me, one thing, the reason why this idea for today's topic even came up was I woke up this morning and I was watching an interview with somebody. And the interviewer was just talking about how in their upbringing, their childhood teachers or their parents really discouraged them around what they were capable of. They said that you can never be a public speaker, or they would like fail English class and they ended up becoming a New York Times bestselling author. Like, they were just talking about how where their dreams were discouraged by individuals of influence in their upbringing. This is what sparked me to want to do this conversation with you today, is because I started reflecting on my own childhood. And I realized that I never had a teacher tell me I wasn't capable of doing something. My grandmother and my aunt raised me for the majority of my childhood. My grandma and my aunt, I didn't have a parent that was like on my neck about my grades or telling me that I couldn't be something. But my situation was I was the only one that was managing and monitoring things that I was going after. And I'm curious to know like what your childhood upbringing was, because this really impacts how you play into beating competition and how you show up in sales today. So I'm going to thread this together. But let me know what your childhood was like. Was your childhood more of parents and teachers discouraging you, telling you that you weren't going to grow up to be nothing, telling you that you weren't capable of doing something? Or was your childhood maybe more like mine? Even though I was one of the youngest children in the house, I was always expected to be the most responsible. And because I was responsible, my grandmother and my auntie never were checking on my grades. They weren't asking me about how my grades were going. They weren't asking me about my dreams. I think that because I was like self-sufficient as a child, they kind of just like let me do my thing on my own. Nobody was really checking on me, asking me about my goals. And I wasn't getting positive affirmation in either direction. I was just getting no affirmation. And when I think about that, when I realized that the only competition I even had growing up as a kid, I wasn't competing against a teacher telling me I couldn't do something. I wasn't competing against a parent telling me I couldn't do something. The only competition I was competing against was my self-talk. And I think this is a really important dynamic to bring up in the conversation of pricing and sales, is because I really want you to ask yourself, who is your competition? And have you really even thought about who your competition is? And a lot of the time, even outside of what's happening in our industry, I'm not talking about competitors who are also selling products. I'm talking about the competition and the battles that we are trying to fight internally. whether that's like within your family dynamic, whether that's a person of influence, or in my situation, my biggest competitor has been my self talk. The biggest source of discouragement I have had in my journey has been myself, because I wasn't getting any influence really from my parents or from my teachers. I want to say that to say, like, being able to manage your self talk influences how you show up in your business, and it influences how you dictate your prices. It influences how you market and message and position yourself. The reason why I brought this up is because when I woke up this morning and I was thinking about this topic, I was like, damn it. The only competitor that I have been losing against is myself this entire time. Because when you really ask yourself, okay, why can I not charge more? Where did you get that idea from? I can't pinpoint where somebody externally telling me what I couldn't do. So I realized that a lot of the limitations that I have experienced, a lot of the hurdles that I have had to work to overcome have been self-imposed. They have been self-imposed limitations that I have told myself that I have made up as a belief because of whatever reason. And there's probably a million reasons why, but it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, the only competitor that I had to fight was myself. It was the self-talk on nobody would pay me for X, Y, or Z, or there's no way that I could charge that much. There is nobody in my audience who would pay more money to work with me. I can't start a business. Nobody will hire me. I don't know how I can overcome objections. Like, those are all self-imposed limiting thoughts. So I want to start the conversation with that, because I want you to even ask yourself, do you even know who your competition is? And I want you to really think about that question as, who is your competition? Is your competition actually somebody external? Is it another business owner? Is it another individual in the space offering a similar service? Is the competition that you're trying to overcome thoughts, beliefs, projections that somebody else imposed on you? Maybe an ex-boyfriend, maybe a girlfriend, a friend of yours, maybe a family member, maybe a teacher, maybe somebody of influence. Or is your competitor yourself? Are you the one imposing limitations, restrictions, and constraints around what you can or cannot do? And when I woke up this morning and had that realization, I was like, gee, by God Almighty, it's me. I'm my biggest competitor. When I think about any of the limitations, I shouldn't say any, but majority of the limitations that I have experienced when it comes to building my business, when it comes to setting my prices, when it comes to packaging my offers, it has been me overcoming the objections that I have self-imposed. It has been me overcoming the limiting the beliefs, the self-doubt, and honestly, the different aspects of sabotage that I have placed on myself. And what I realized, that my biggest competitor was my current comfort zone. Sometimes it's not a self-sabotage. It's just that you don't want to make a decision that requires you to get out of your current state of comfort. So before we even talk about any of the other like tactical strategies around this stuff, like, this is a question that we all need to think about. Is there actually a barrier for you to do the thing that you want to do? Is that barrier actually real? Or is it self-imposed because of language and vocabulary that you keep self-imposing on yourself? Is there really an actual constraint that you need to overcome and work through? Or is it just you making a decision to take action outside of your current comfort zone? And I feel like there's some people listening to this right now where you can probably log off right now. Like, that was probably the word that you needed to hear today. Like, that was probably it. And I bring this up again too, because about a week ago, I've been jamming out on music all morning. So I'm a little bit like beat boppy right now. But I was doing a live stream last week, and we were on a call talking about, like, there was somebody saying, how do I overcome the resistance with raising my prices? And she was selling her program for $2,000. And on the live stream, I asked her, well, how much do you want to be charging? And she said $3,000. And she had a sales call the next day. And I was like, well, just decide that on the call, you're going to say $3,000 instead of $2,000. And literally, she sent me a DM a couple days after the live stream telling me that she raised the price. On the sales call the next day, she said it was $3,000 instead of $2,000, and the client paid without hesitation. And when I think about that, and when about pricing and beating competitors, all that this one individual needed to hear was somebody to invite her into giving herself permission to do the thing that she already wanted to do. To do the thing that she already knew that she probably had earned the right and generated demand to offer in the first place. There was no physical constraint holding her back from raising her prices. It was just permission that she had to give herself to get out of her comfort zone. And she had to overcome the negative self-talk that was keeping her constrained to a lower price point. I want to start the conversation with that. Okay. Who is your actual competitor? And usually our biggest competitor is our negative self-talk. It is the self-imposed limiting beliefs, the self-imposed restraints and constrictions that we put on ourselves. We're not actually even competing with anybody external. The only person you're competing with is yourself. This is why they always say, like, man, it's you versus you, because it is. So often the biggest constraint is not the white man, it's not the system, it's not this capitalistic structure. Absolutely, those things have an impact. Okay, so I don't want to disregard that, but a lot of the things that we are coming up against is things that we actually have control over. And I want to talk about where else you have control in your business to beat the competition without lowering your price beyond just the control of managing your thoughts and the control that you have of choosing to take action outside of your current comfort zone. So I got my little notebook. Okay. I got some little notes for us today. So you might need to take some notes too. So get your pen and paper ready. Or if you're going to help your neighbor out in the comments, type when you hear me say it, Jim, just type it in the comments. The second thing that I'll say of where you have control of being able to beat the competition without lowering your price, write this down, is stop competing on price. I think the simple way, the easy, the most obvious way for many of us to recognize on how we can differentiate ourselves in the marketplace, most people only think about price. Oh, if I'm the cheaper option, then more people will want to buy me. Or the fact of the matter is like you should at some point in your business make the decision to not be the cheapest option. Like stop competing on price. Compete on other variables. Price is only one factor that influences somebody's buying decision. It is not the only factor that influences somebody's buying decision. Price is one factor. So when you stop competing on price, if you're in the info business, the online education, the information online info business as a course creator or as a coach, I think the most profitable decision that you can make as a coach in the online space is to never compete on price. Because when you're selling intellectual property, we do not have the advantage of physical attributes of a product influencing somebody's buying decision. We're not selling anything physical. We're selling intellectual property. We're selling a thought process. We are selling really something intangible that somebody has to really experience to understand the depth of value around. And the only other thing that we have going for us when you're selling something intellectual and non-physical is your vocabulary. It is what the words that you say, how you show up, how people perceive you, but it's nothing tangible. It's not physical. So stop competing on price if you're trying to beat the competition as a course creator, as an online coach. And there are some things that you can be doing. I'm going to give you guys some specific examples on how you can stop competing on price and start competing on other variables. One thing I think it's important for me to mention is that many people are selling based off of demographic data and demographic insights to influence how people are making a buying decision, versus you should be marketing, messaging, and selling based off of psychographic information. The things that are the thoughts and the beliefs that are influencing how somebody is making a buying decision. That is what allows you to sell based off of value more effectively versus selling based off of price prematurely. Okay. I think it's a really low level way of selling for people who are not maybe in the mass volume game. Like if you're not, trying to build a massive audience and sell a lot of lower ticket products or lower ticket items, you shouldn't be competing on price. If you're trying to solve a more sophisticated problem, if you're trying to create a bigger impact, if you're trying to actually help clients go through a structured process to achieve a more significant, a larger result, where you get to charge more of the higher ticket price point for it, don't compete on price, compete on value. And the way that you compete on value is based off of how you market and position yourself. And if you're only marketing based off of demographic data and metrics, you're really selling yourself short and setting yourself up to have lower conversion rates and to have a higher rate of people telling you no. Because people, when they're buying more sophisticated solutions, if they're charging and expecting to pay a higher ticket price point, you have to market and position yourself based off psychographic data. And the next thing I want to get into is how do you position yourself and position your offer to sell your offers based off of value and not solely based on price. When you think about basing it off of value, one of the fundamental shifts in how somebody make a buying decision is going from this thought to this thought. So the thought of how much does this cost to what is the expected return on investment. That is a shift in dynamic. Okay, that's a shift in how they're making a buying decision. And that is the shift that you want to influence every one of your prospects to make. When you're on the phone with a prospect, you don't want them to be asking, oh my gosh, how much does this cost? You want them to be thinking, what is the expected return on investment? And do I think based off the expected ROI, do I think this price point is reflective and is it valued at what I think the return on investment will be? That is how you want them to be thinking. You don't want your prospect to be thinking, oh my gosh, I want the cheapest option. How much does this cost? I want the most budget-friendly solution for what it is that I'm doing. You want to position your offer and position influence with your messaging and your marketing to have them thinking, it's not about the cost of the program. It's about what is the expected return on investment that I can expect to get by way of following the process that this program is going to give me access to. So that's a psychological shift. You have control over influencing based off your marketing, based off your messaging, and based off your offer positioning, okay? The way in which you can make that fundamental shift in how somebody perceives you and how somebody is approaching making a buying decision with you is with a few fundamental things. First and foremost is, have you actually identified a sophisticated problem that you can solve based off the skill sets that you already have? The more sophisticated the problem that you are solving, the more that psychographic or the more sophisticated the prospect is going to be when they're making a buying decision. So what I mean by that is like, I've been on YouTube because I've been trying to figure out how to build my YouTube channel. Even just going live on YouTube is like a whole nother learning curve for me. But when I keep seeing these ads on YouTube of like hiring this company to help you get an LLC. Filing for an LLC is a very entry level, basic thing that every business owner has to do. That's not a sophisticated problem. Like technically you could Google how to file an LLC. You don't have to pay a company. I don't know this company that has these ads going around. I'm not knocking them and no shade to them because I know that there's companies out there that can set LLCs up for people. But for the average small business owner, you can call state registration office and like they can walk you through how to set up an LLC. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of blog articles on how to file for an LLC. That's not a sophisticated problem. Versus if you're solving a more sophisticated problem, Boo has a program that teaches business owners how to scale their lead generation using paid advertising and increasing their ad budget as they continue to scale. That's a specific problem. That is a sophisticated problem that Boo is solving. And because it's a sophisticated problem, the thought process and how somebody is making a buying decision is fundamentally different. To me, a basic problem of like how to file an LLC, when there is so much free information that will literally walk you through the entire process, if I'm making that decision, I would want to know how much does this cost? I would be very cost conscious and be making a decision primarily based off of price. But when I'm looking at maybe a Boo's program on his accelerator program, and I'm trying to figure out how do I build up my ad spend so that I'm spending $20, $30, $40, $50,000 a month on my ads, that's a sophisticated problem. I cannot Google how to scale up my ads and find an answer that really gives me the nuanced solution that a Boo teaches his clients. So when you're solving a more sophisticated problem like that, the buying decision criteria changes from how much does this cost to what is the expected return on investment and what value does solving this problem bring to my business right now. That's a different buying decision criteria. So the more sophisticated the problem is that you solve and the more specialized and specific that problem is, that allows you to differentiate yourself from the competition where you're no longer competing on price, but you're competing on value. But that's a really important thing that you have to understand, okay? Solving a more sophisticated problem that is more specialized, that is more nuanced, that is more specific, allows you to immediately differentiate yourself from the competition and no longer be solely competing on price, but actually competing based off of value. The next thing that you have to do to compete based off of value and not based off of price is how you articulate that value. You might be really, really great at delivering value, delivering specialized problems, solving a more sophisticated issue for a very specific person in the industry. You might know how to deliver it, but the next thing that you have to learn how to do is, are you effective at articulating it? And again, when you're selling an info product, you're selling intellectual property, you have to master your ability to articulate your value in a virtual sales environment. We are all using social media primarily to generate leads for our business. Whether you're using free organic content, paid media, you're having to leverage other people's audiences, you're banking on referrals, whatever you're doing to get clients, Your ability to articulate your value influences any lead generation source that you could be doing. So you have to get really good at being able to articulate that value. One of the very first things that you can do to enhance your ability to articulate your value, and again, in a virtual or in a remote, even if you're in person selling, you still have to be able to communicate effectively and be able to identify, this is the problem that you have. This is the problem that I know how to solve. And this is a specific reason why you should, consider me as a solution that you hire. But when you're thinking about articulating your value, one of the first things that you can do is clarifying what is the promise of your program. Having a clear program promise is the first step, in my opinion, of effectively being able to articulate your value. Your program promise is something that really clarifies the claim that you are making and is offering your prospects, really setting them up to understand what outcome they can expect by working with you. And the same rules apply of what I said about solving a sophisticated problem. Being really effective at clarifying a program promise, you want to, again, speak to the specifics. You want to be specialized. You want to be nuanced. You don't want to just say, I help people grow their business. That's a lot of ambiguity. What people do you help and how do you help them grow? Like, how do you define growth based off the vehicle that you teach inside of your program? Those are the questions that you want to be able to clarify. And having a really defined program promise that's the first step, in my opinion, when you're selling intellectual property, in the info course creator coaching industry. Having a program promise is one of the most effective first ways for you to be able to articulate your value and really penetrate that. And I was on a call yesterday from somebody who runs a marketing agency. And one of the things that they talked about, I actually heard this twice from two different people at two different events that I've attended over the past 2 weeks, is one, I heard this from Chris Doe. He said, before we've always heard that it's important for you to differentiate yourself, and differentiating yourself in today's marketing and sales environment is no longer enough. You have to be radically different. You have to radically differentiate yourself from the competition now. And I think that's very, very true. Being different no longer is enough, in my opinion, to influence somebody to consistently want to choose you. You have to really think about, how am I radically different, distinctly different, not they kind of different. No, these are two completely different options. And there's a hard line. There's a big gap in consideration when you're trying to compare two things. I think Tesla did this. And I think this is a reason why Tesla has completely changed the automotive industry. When Tesla came out, they weren't just different. When you look at Ford, Chrysler, GM, all of those cars, were those companies different? Yes. Were the styles of the car different? Yes. But they weren't radically different from each other. When you look at when Tesla came out, I remember the first time I saw a Tesla, I was in Birmingham, Michigan, driving downtown. I literally almost got into a car accident because when I saw the car, I did not know what it was. I was like, that's not different. This thing is that's a whole nother type of automobile on the road right now. So when you start thinking, and I think Tesla was just ahead of its time, but when you start to look at even that as an example to how are you showing up in your business, you don't want to just be slightly different. You don't want to be coupled up into the Ford, GM, Chrysler kind of comparison bubble. When I'm looking to go buy a Ford Focus versus a Honda Civic versus a Toyota Prius versus a Chrysler 200, they're all kind of the same. There are these minor nuanced differences. When you're that close in comparison, you are going to be competing on price. But when you start to differentiate yourself, Tesla, in my opinion, is synonymous with electric vehicle. When I think of electric vehicle, I forget that other car brands make electric vehicles. I'd be like, no, it's only Tesla, because they differentiated themselves so much from the competition. So you want to figure out what is the way for you to do that in your own industry. And having a program promise is one of the first steps for you being able to not just differentiate yourself, but to radically differentiate yourself from your competition and to radically differentiate yourself in your industry, because you're now no longer trying to compete off, oh yeah, we're all business coaches that help people grow their business, versus what we do in leverage. No, we are a coaching company that doesn't just, yes, we help you grow your business, but we help you grow your business in a very distinct, specialized and specific way. We help people who have cohort curriculum-based group coaching programs, who want to be selling $3,000 to $10,000 price point, who want their primary source of lead generation to be organic video content. That is very, very specific. It makes it more difficult for people to compare you to competitors, because when you are offering such a specialized service, usually there's not that many other options that are doing the same thing because you're so nuanced, either in the vehicle that you are teaching or in the the psychographic of the individual that you're serving. You can't compare it. Like if somebody reaches out saying, "Hey Jay, where can I go to be in a learning environment where it's predominantly people of color? I'm not going to be in the minority being a woman of color in this group. I want to grow organically. I want to grow with a lean team. I want to grow under the philosophy of maintaining high profit margins. And I want to grow selling a high ticket offer." I don't know anywhere else you can go to learn that and to be in that type of environment that aligns with your values, in addition that aligns with the vehicle in which of how you want to grow and how you want to experience growth. So the more specialized I got, I'm no longer just different, but I'm radically different. And I'm no longer competing on price because there is no other, I don't know, and I personally don't know any other business owner that offers the caliber of the community, that offers the specific vehicle that we teach, that offers the same operational owner's intent on how we make decisions operationally in the business and how we teach clients to do that. I don't know another option. So you can't compare me on price because there's nobody else's price to compare me against. So that's kind of what you want to think about doing. And having a program promise is one of the first ways to do that. You have to remind yourself, and again, this is true in today's day and age, prospects want a level of validation when they are making a buying decision. The one objection that every single prospect is thinking about when they're trying to decide on whether or not they want to hire you is, will this work for me? And there has to be something specific that speaks to their specific moment in time, that communicates a level of relevancy to the biggest problem they're trying to solve, that will give them validation that you're the person that they should go with, that your program is the one for them. People are looking for relevancy and they're looking for validation. And when you think about relevancy and validation, when it comes to you articulating your value and trying to sell based off of value versus competing on price, one is the problem that you're solving relevant to the problem that they have? And relevancy, the more relevant, meaning the more specialized, the more specific, the more nuanced, the more dialed in, the more specific your problem is that you know how to solve, that gives them confidence that what you do and how you do it is relevant to the problem that they have. The second thing is validation. I think that, sales pages, and this is why we don't even use sales pages in my business anymore. We haven't used a sales page in 2 or 3 years in my business, is because, again, when you're solving a more sophisticated problem and when you're trying to position yourself where you're not just competing on price, you have to think about, how is my sales process and how is my marketing communicating and giving this prospect, like increasing their trust, causing them to have a bigger level of belief? How effective am I articulating my value in a way that gives this prospect validation? But we not only understand their problem, the relevancy of how we solve their problem is so specific and so real and so relevant to how they feel like they need this, like how they perceive the solution that they need to have or they need to buy. Is this making sense? Like, validation is so important. So you have to think about, again, how are your marketing, your messaging, your program promise, how you're packaging your offer, all of those things influence people's perception on, do they think that, one, you know what the hell you're talking about, two, the solution that you're providing is aligned and directly relevant with the problem they have right now, and three, how is your sales process and your marketing helping them have a sense of validation so that they feel confident in the decision that they're making with you. And when you can master that and when you can do that, you're no longer competing on price. You're no longer competing on price. At the end of the day, people pay to solve their problems. I don't care if we're in a recession. I don't care if we're in an economic downturn. I don't care, you think about all of the global crises, you have to really think about what makes me essential even in a recession. What makes what I have to offer essential even during a COVID situation? Like, what makes what I have to offer essential? And essentialism boils down to relevancy and validation. And being able to properly communicate those things is dependent on how well you can articulate your value. And being able to more effectively articulate your value, in my opinion, starts with having a clearly defined program promise. When you can matriculate all those things together, you're no longer competing on price. People are making buying decisions based off of value that is articulated, value that is delivered, and radical differentiation, because there's nobody else to even compare you against. And that is what I want to share today. If you need help with that, maybe that first step of like clarifying your program promise and identifying a sophisticated problem that you can solve, if you visit jerishahawk.com/niche, Or on Instagram, if you send me a direct message with the word niche, Niche, just that one word, no other characters, nothing else in the message, just the word niche, my automated assistant, Betty the bot, will send you my free PDF guide. We put this guide together to specifically help you identify what is a sophisticated problem that you know how to solve based off the skills that you already have. And how do you start to craft your program promise statement so that you can be more effective at articulating your value? And that PDF guide will help you do that. It's totally complimentary. So like I said, you can send me a DM on Instagram with the word niche, Niche, just the one word, and my automated assistant, Betty the bot, will send you the guide. Or you can visit jerishahawk.com/niche to go download it there too. I will talk to you guys later. I will see you guys in the next episode, and toodaloo! If you liked the video you just watched, click this one. You might like it even more. Go ahead, check it out.